All right, what's up, everybody? Brian here, and this is my Impact Wrestling thoughts on last night's episode of Impact Wrestling. I am recording this on Friday, the day after the episode. Also, tonight is huge. There's a huge show at WrestleCon in New Orleans for Impact Wrestling, as it will be Impact Wrestling versus Lucha Underground. Stars of Impact Wrestling taking on Stars of Lucha Underground. It will be broadcast on Twitch tonight, so be sure to check that out. I will not be able to check it out, but hopefully everybody else does. So let's get right into the episode from last night. Of course, Impact, last night, my thoughts on last night's episode. I thought it was actually a very good show once again. Things are really starting to turn around for Impact Wrestling. They have been putting on some pretty good episodes the last couple of weeks. Of course, their pay-per-view Redemption coming up 2 weeks from Sunday on April 22nd, with the main event being Impact World Champion Austin Aries defending against Alberto El Patron for the first time ever. And we got what I thought was actually a pretty good video preview where they taught on last night's episode, where they both participants talked about each other. Both men talked about the upcoming match coming up, and I thought it was actually a pretty good video package documenting both Aries and Patron. I'm expecting a pretty good match between these two, April 22nd at Redemption, with that world title on the line. But we started off last night's Impact with Lashley, the Destroyer, taking on Brian Cage. This was a bit of a rematch from last week, where Brian Cage defeated Lashley. Lashley looking for a little bit of redemption from last week, but he did not get it, as Brian Cage, with the drill claw, defeated Lashley in what was a very impactful matchup, in my opinion. Both guys pulling out all the stops, pulling out everything that they could think of. But, like I said, Cage defeated Lashley with the drill claw, and that was pretty much it. So we all know about Lashley's, on the way out. I think last night's episode was, was his last episode. Because they filmed it back in, I believe, January. So, as far as, he's no longer with the company. So the big question, where is he going to go from there? But also, hopefully this leads to big things for Brian Cage, as far as becoming, a top star in the company, in Impact Wrestling going further. What else? We had Sooyoung taking on current Knockouts champion Eli. Sooyoung made her debut a couple weeks ago, attacking Eli while Eli was distracted by Braxton Sutter. And then last week she defeated Amber Nova in a match. Eli came out, cut a promo saying that I'm mad and Sooyoung, get out here and fight me, and that led to a match that ended with Sooyoung getting disqualified using a kendo stick on Eli. My only thought on this one was basically this was just it was fine. It was okay, an okay matchup, but it was just like something to continue this feud going further. I mean, I could see this leading to a Knockouts title match between these two at Redemption. That's what was pretty much it for that. We found out that next week, Rosemary will be taking on Taya Valkyrie in a Demon Dance match, whatever that means. It's probably going to be like a no rule, like a anything goes matchup or something along those lines. But so that's going to be taking place next week. We also found out that next week as well, Josh Matthews is going to be taking on Petey Williams. Of course, Josh Matthews and Petey Williams Josh Matthews and Matt Sydal, the X Division champion, I should say. Sorry about that, guys. They blame Petey Williams for Matt Sydal losing the Impact Grand Championship last week to Austin Aries in that title versus title match that they had last week. And of course, Petey Williams, who got one of the X Division title briefcase in Feast or Fired, is going to be cashing in to challenge Matt Sydal for the X Division Championship at Redemption on April 22nd. So next week, Josh Matthews will get his chance at revenge on Petey Williams, and that'll be interesting to see what happens there. What else? We saw a very competitive match between Taiji Ishimori, the former X Division champion, and Johnny Impact, who the last time we saw in action was back at, I believe, Crossroads, that edition of Impact where he challenged Austin Aries for the Impact World Championship. Those two took on each other, Ishimori and Johnny Impact. This was another pretty good, solid matchup, in my opinion. A lot of back and forth, a lot of great action in this one. But it was Johnny Impact with Starship Pain defeating Taiji Ishimori to pick up the win to once again get back into title contention. Afterwards, he would be confronted by Jimmy Jacobs and Congo Kong. This was a coming off of last week where Jimmy Jacobs confronted Johnny Impact, saying Congo Kong says hi. Congo Kong and Johnny Impact would get into it, and this would pretty much end with Johnny Impact in the ring and Jimmy Jacobs backing Congo Kong and both of them laughing. So obviously this is setting up the next feud for Johnny Impact as well as Congo Kong, who came off the heels a couple of weeks ago of defeating the Monster Abyss in Monsters Ball. So this should be an interesting feud going further if that's the way they're going. The main event was Case versus Case, where Moose and Eli Drake fought each other, and both Moose's world title briefcase and Eli Drake's tag team title case was on the line. And I thought this was actually a pretty good match. The ending kind of ties into another story or another feud that's been going on in Impact Wrestling as far as ODE and Eddie Edwards are concerned. Near the end of the match, Moose looked like he was getting ready to win. He would go to hit this lariat on Eli Drake, and Eli Drake ducked, and Moose hit the referee. And then Moose would look like he was going to go to finish off Eli Drake, but here comes Sami Callihan, here comes David J. Christ. They would go after Moose. Obviously, Moose is one of Eddie Edwards' friends, and OVE made it very clear that they're going to go after Eddie Edwards' friends and anybody that associated with Eddie Edwards. Eddie Edwards would come out to try to even the odds. He would drag Sami Callihan out of the ring, and they would start brawling, and then Moose would take out Dave and Jay Christ. But that was enough of a distraction for Eli Drake, while the referee was still down, to use the baseball bat that OVE brought into the ring on Moose. He went for the pin, but Moose kicked out. But then finally, it was the Gravy Train that finished off Moose and picked up the victory for Eli Drake. So now Eli Drake has a world title shot and a tag team title shot. So who is Eli Drake going to pick to be his tag team partner to go after the tag team championships, which are currently held by LAX? And when is Eli Drake going to cash in that world title shot? We'll have to wait and see. But overall, my thoughts are one other thing before I forget. Another segment that took place involved KM, Rich Justice, Falaba, Cult of Lee, and Tyrus. KM was insulting Rich Justice in the ring, calling him fat, talking about his weight. Falaba would come out and go after KM. Then Cult of Lee, Trevor Lee, and Caleb Conley, they would come out and go after Falaba. Tyrus would come out, and he would take out all three of them. And then one of the funny parts about this segment was when Tyrus was talking, he would target. He wouldn't not target, but he was like, there was like a little kid wearing an orange hat in the crowd, and Tyrus played off like the kid was saying bad stuff about KM and Trevor Lee and Caleb Conley, saying about KM that that he would be mad too if he was known as Sienna's valet instead of a wrestler. And then and then Tyrus played off like the kid said something about Cult of Lee, where he acted like the kid said that that Trevor Lee and Caleb Connolly stood on each other's shoulders. They'd be able to pick on a guy like Tyrus. I thought it was pretty funny. So that was another segment they had. But overall, my thoughts on last night's episode of Impact. I thought it was actually a pretty good show. As I said at the beginning, it seems like they're really turning things around little bit by little bit. So, of course, their big Impact Wrestling versus Lucha Underground thing is tonight. So, but I thought last night's episode was actually pretty good. Cannot wait to see what happens next week and going further heading into Redemption. So, with that being said, if you guys watched last night's episode of Impact Wrestling, let me know what you guys thought of it in the comments below. This has been my quick recap of what took place on last night's episode of Impact Wrestling. As always, I am Brian, and thank you for watching.